Light that'll appear, and we are now live streaming. And we're waiting to see, and we're recording, Madam Chair.
Oh, good evening, committee and everyone. Welcome back to another Board of Alders Finance Committee meeting. Board of Alders Notice New Haven. The New Haven Board of Alders Finance Committee will meet on Monday, February 8th, 2021 at 6 p.m. online at https://bit.ly/n2nwbdq0 by phone at 312-626-6799 or 929-205-6099. Webinar ID 93452437655 with audio only, password 858556947 to hear and act on the following items. Item number 1, LM-2021-0004. Order to read and file the updated budgetary and financial report for the month of November 2020 in compliance with Article 8, Section 5 of the Charter. Number 2, LM-2021-0048. Order to read and file the updated budgetary and financial report for the month of December 2020 in compliance with Article 8, Section 5 of the Charter. Number 3, LM-2021-0005, resolution authorizing superintendent to apply for the non-priority grant CT DAS/0SCGR and approval of local funds. Number 4, LM-2021-0010, resolution to establish building committee for sound school roof replacement under the non-priority grant CT DAS/OSCGR. Number 5, LM-2021-0011, resolution for preparation of schematic drawing and outline specification for sound school roof replacement under the non-priority school construction CTDAS/0OSCGR. Item 6, OR 2021-0001, ordinance amendment to appropriating ordinance number 1, authorizing reclassification of general fund positions within departments, Department of Parks, Public Works, Department of Public Health, and Office of Legislative Services, and funds in the amount of $25,000 be transferred from Mayor's Office salary account number 1-131-1010-50110 to the Department of Parks/Public Works account number 1-504-1010-50110 in the amount of $11,000, and Department of Public Health account number 1-301-1010-50111 in the amount of $14,000 for fiscal year 2020-2021. Per order, Honorable Yvette Hamilton, Chair, attest Honorable Michael Smart, City Clerk. For accessibility related accommodation, contact 203-946-7651, voice, or 203-946-8582 TTY in advance of the meeting. If you wish to present public testimony, please email publictestimony@newhavencity.gov or call 203-946-7934 before 2 p.m. day of the meeting. Meeting can be viewed on broadband, YouTube channel, or online at https://colon/bit.ly/2NWBDQ0 or heard by phone at 312-626-6799 or 929-205-6099, webinar ID 934-5243-7655, and audio only, password 858-855-6947. Thank you, everyone, and good evening, and thank you for joining us this evening. At this time, I will take the attendance as usual, and after I am finished with the attendance, I'll turn the meeting over to Alderman Marchand that will go into our procedural process, and after that, we'll go right into the agenda items as posted this evening. So with that, good evening, Adam Marchand.
Here.
Thank you. Alder Ernie Santiago. Is Alder Santiago on the call? Not yet. Alder DeCola, Sal DeCola.
Here.
Thank you. Jeanette Morrison. Alder Walker Myers.
Here.
Thank you. Alder Anna Festa.
Here.
Alder Richard Furlow. Alder Evelyn
Present.
Rodriguez. Oh, I'm sorry.
Present.
Did I hear Alder Furlow say present?
Yes, present, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And Alder Evelyn, I heard you also saying present,
Yes.
correct?
Present,
Yeah.
Madam Chair. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Alder Ron Hurt. No, and Alder Charles Decker.
Present.
Okay, good evening, Alder Decker. And with that, welcome everyone to the Finance Committee meeting this evening. I will now turn the meeting over to Alder Marchand just to go through our.
Oh, okay. We lost you there for a moment, Madam Chair, but hopefully your audio will return. In the meantime, let me also just recognize our colleagues, Alder Abby Roth and Alder Rosa Ferrara Santana, who are here with us as well. We've established a method for getting through our meetings during this time of social isolation via Zoom. We will proceed with the agenda as it is published. The chair will ask the makers of the item to come forward and to give their presentation. She will then offer committee members opportunity to ask questions. She will go through the list of committee members in the same order which she just did for the attendance. We would ask colleagues please to limit your questions to 4. Time permitting, there may be a second opportunity for additional questions. The Madam Chair and I discussed this agenda earlier and decided that what we should do is really take these 6 items and to put them into 3 topics. Obviously, the 2 monthly financial reports we can discuss together. And so we will do that. And then Madam Chair will ask if anybody from the public wishes to testify on those 2 reports. Then the next 3 items are all relevant to the project at the roof project at the Sound School. So we will take the next 3 items together, hear the presentation, offer committee a chance to ask questions, and then ask for public testimony. And then finally, the last item we will treat separately and on its own, asking for public testimony after that. So there will be 3 moments to where the members of the public may present testimony after the first 2 items, which are both budget reports, after the 3rd, 4th, and 5th items, which are all related, and then after the 6th and final item. Of course, the monthly financial reports are typically read and file items. We suspect that's what we'll be recommending to the full board. Items 3, 4, and 5, the applicant has notified us about a time sensitivity. The method that Madam Chair and I discussed for how to deal with that is to take no action this evening, leave them in committee, and Madam Chair intends to ask the full board to discharge those items from us so that in the meeting next week, the full board may vote on them immediately. And then finally, the last item would be a regular voting item. So that is all that I have for procedural announcements, Madam Chair. I hope your audio is restored. Apparently not. So why don't you click a few buttons to see if you can make your microphone work again. Now we can hear. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm working on the audio system here. Anyway, thank you very much for your procedural comments. And with that, we will start with item number 1. I'm sure Mr. Gormany is somewhere there, hopefully.
Madam Chair, point of order, I think it's appropriate to recognize Alder Jeanette Morrison, who has joined us, a member of the committee. Also, I note that Alder Carmen Rodriguez is here as well.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, first of all, Alder Morrison, and good evening, Alder Carmen Rodriguez. Thank you for joining us this evening, both of you. Wow, this audio system.
Mr. Gormany, we are ready. Name and address for the record, please.
Sure, Michael Gormley, 45 Jefferson Road, Branford, Connecticut.
Good evening, Mr. Gormany. Are you
Hello.
hearing my audio?
Yeah,
All righty, welcome as usual. Thank you for joining us, and just go right into I think the first item.
sure. The first 2 items are the monthly reports.
Right.
As normal, I will talk about the most current report, which is December. I am not sure who has control, but can you give me share screen and I will share the monthly report?
If Mr. Lucas could make that happen, we would be grateful.
Here we go. All right. So I am gonna sort of work my way from the back to the front with the monthly report as normal. The first section of the monthly report that we'll be talking about are as of December of 2020 is our medical claims. As I talked about in previous meetings, our medical claims have held steady for this current fiscal year. We did see a slight movement in December. As you can see, the actual number is about $534,000 above the previous year. Now, also, December was a holiday month. There was a lot of people, you know, even with COVID restrictions, still getting checkups. It was family quarantining, all that other stuff. So we're still getting a lot of the data, but that's part of the reason why we've seen sort of an uptick in the month of December. As you can see, in the previous months, we have really been down over the previous year as far as claims wise. Again, as I've done in the monthly report, I used a baseline of 8% as an increase over the previous year's claims. Just as we talked about, at some point there will be there will be some normalcy to medical appointments and other checkups and other things. I think the city has to be prepared and properly project out those expenses when they do occur. Again, it's just medical is one of those factors that are hard to sort of project out when it comes to expenditures. But again, I'm using a baseline of what I've seen over the past four years, 2 years of pre-COVID and 2 years and a year, 3 years of pre-COVID and a year of COVID towards the tail end of last fiscal year. So again, we will continue to monitor those medical expenditures as they are incurred. On the revenue side, some of our revenue, because I know there's like a big jump here for the month of November and then a big spike in December. Again, some of the revenue is based on employee cost sharing to the fund. It really depends on the pay periods. as far as looking at the revenue from month over month per year. So again, some months will have December, for example, will have 5 pay periods in some years. So you'll see some increased revenue in those months as opposed to the previous year. So this large variance between November and December was really the variance in the payroll periods that the city's seen. Again, we're slightly below on the revenue side of the fund. Again, a lot of the revenue is really based off of employee cost sharing and the city's general fund. This top area, which is really what we call outside revenue, is the majority of that is employee cost sharing. Again, as I mentioned in the previous meetings, as positions are vacant, there's less revenue going into that fund. That's less employee cost share. So while you're saving on the expenditure side, you're also not putting in any revenue on the revenue side. I mean, in essence, you would think that one is a wash, but again, you can sort of see that effect here on the revenue itself in medical. Overall, through the month of December, we are still projecting a surplus between the revenues and the expenditures for that fund. You'll see we're still projecting about a 3.7, almost $3.8 million surplus, which would get rid of the negative fund balance in the medical self-insurance fund, as stated. Going to page 58 is our workers' compensation fund. Again, we've seen, I think, more with teleworking and other teleworking, we've seen sort of a savings in the workers' comp fund. As you can see here, I am projecting basically the same amount per month for the remainder of the fiscal year. We are working aggressively to change the workers' compensation program. Again, we started this about 2 years ago, which you can see even prior to COVID, the workers' compensation claims going down. So we will continue to have return to work meetings, more investigatory meetings, and continue to ramp up that workers' compensation program for the city and the Board of Education. But we are seeing a decrease year over year. And again, haven't shied away. Part of that is due to COVID as well. So we'll continue to monitor the workers' compensation program. But right now, that program is breaking even between the projected revenues and expenses that we see going into that fund. And then the third self-insurance fund is really our litigation fund. There hasn't been a lot of activity in this fiscal year with COVID and the way the court systems and litigation is working. We're not seeing a lot of activity. The litigation settlement committee is still meeting, but just on priority cases, really, for the city. So right now, what you see is basically through December, we've really only spent about $757,000 in the litigation fund. That is going to, what we spend is basically going to be what happens the rest of the fiscal year. Any larger cases or whatever happens. But again, that's a fund that we'll continue to monitor, but currently we've only expended through December about $757,000. And I will just go to our city general fund revenues and expenses. I know it's scrolling pretty quickly. So as of December, we are projecting about a $14.8 million deficit. That is up from the previous month of November. And there are really two main causes of that deficit. In And looking at the revenue side first, what we are seeing is really a decrease in parking. That is one of the areas that we continue to monitor on the local level. We are projecting about only collecting about 3.5 in meter receipts. Again, before I was preparing this monthly, I was in a meeting and looking outside, and in front of City Hall, I couldn't remember a time where I seen so many parking meters open. That's just the reality of what's happening with COVID right now. Is that we are seeing less meter revenue throughout the city. So that is definitely having an impact on our locally generated revenues in the city. So that earlier in the November monthly, we were slightly higher in that category. But again, adjusting for real-time numbers and the actual projections, we had to, be prudent and basically decrease that projected number. Right now, on the other meter piece, which is parking tax, you can see, where is it? Here it is. Parking tax was the other one that we took down. Again, with less parking throughout the city, we are actually seeing less tickets issued during the year. Again, we have more different types of safety violations than just parking tickets that our parking enforcement officers are actually ticketing for. But again, year over year, the actual ticket numbers are down. And I will also say that transportation, traffic, and parking has also seen a number of vacancies during the fiscal year in the parking enforcement officer sector as well. So those two combined have sort of have led to a decrease in parking tag and parking meter revenue. Those were the two big drivers on the revenue side on the adjustment for the December monthly. On the expenditure side, what we did see was an adjustment. The biggest adjustment on the expenditure side was to our Board of Education. And I didn't notice that there, but basically what you can see is as of November of 2020, the Board of Education was projecting about a $2.7 million surplus in their account. What they are currently projecting now is a $744,000 surplus. The primary driver to that decrease in the surplus was basically the return to work, school reopening of New Haven Public Schools. Again, as I mentioned in prior meetings, that surplus number was going to depend on when we reopen schools, the current plan, how many schools we're going to reopen, and that number would eventually decrease. So as far for transparency's sake, what we wanted to do was sort of show where we were at 3 periods for the Board of Education during the school year. So we were showing as of August, November, and January. So you can sort of see where the fluctuation is coming in at. And the fluctuation is really coming in on the payroll side because more teachers and administrators are returning and readjusting the Board of Education payroll. So that's really one of the main drivers in that deficit really increasing during the year was really going from 2.7 million to about 744,000 of a surplus on the expenditure side. Excuse me. On the city side, everything held relatively the same. We really didn't have any large variances in any city expenditures. Again, I have the expenditure control program currently in place for the city. And my office is currently monitoring all expenditures on the city side for city departments. So what does that mean as far as the city's fund balance? If we were to end with these numbers currently, this would be the effect on the city's fund balance. As you could see, we would go basically from a $17.8 million fund balance to a $16.7 million fund balance, taking into account the general fund, litigation, medical fund, and workers' compensation fund, which are the city's four main drivers towards the fund balance. So again, a few years ago, we collapsed them all into one, which is why the grand total is really what you want to reference as far as the fund balance itself. It's the operating result of those four funds together. And one last item is our COVID expenditures for the fiscal year. Again, while this is for the month of December, I kind of want to keep everyone updated as current as possible with the COVID expenditures. So these COVID expenditures were as of 1/28/21. As you can see, for the current fiscal year, we've spent about $537,000 in overtime, which is primarily made up of police for public safety. On the expenditure side, we have about $1.1 million in actual expenditures laid out through all city departments. So if FEMA was to take everything at face value between last fiscal year and this fiscal year, this is what the cost sharing would look like. Basically, this FEMA would pick up 3.5 million and the city would pick up $1.1 million. I can tell you, this is not an easy process. These numbers will change. I will make that clear. These numbers will change. I can tell you between July and December, FEMA guidelines must have changed 3 times with the previous administration on what's eligible versus ineligible. So until we actually get everything in place in an actual letter, which could still take many, many more months, even on the first submission for expenditures from March through June, I just want to make everyone aware that these numbers could change. We can actually see more of a local share to the city based on what FEMA is deeming eligible versus ineligible. With the new administration, again, this is with the new administration, I'm hearing and getting notices that more things may be eligible for COVID going forward. So again, these numbers going back and forth will continue to change until a final determination is made. We call them, each submission is a project. So as FEMA continues to look at each project, these numbers could slightly change going forward. But in fiscal year 20, we did do the prudent thing, which was included in the fiscal year 20 results of moving over a local share of $1.2 million. So we did do a local share reserve based on our numbers. So as a starting point, so we will continue to monitor that. My office will continue to work with FEMA on what's eligible versus ineligible as far as city expenditures. Again, if things are deemed ineligible, which some things will be deemed ineligible, it may increase the local share just based on the timing with FEMA. Again, a great example is we had the CRF funding that was available that the state had to spend down by a certain time period. With FEMA taking so long, that is one of the reasons that they gave us the lump sum of, in our case, $3.1 million for expenditures for July through December. for this exact issue because FEMA's going to take a while. So I know we have that money available and we're still determining and looking at how much is going to be applied towards the FEMA account and how much is going to be applied towards other uses that we can do like police or fire overtime and other public health and public safety expenditures. So as I get more information, I will certainly keep the board updated on any changes or anything that will happen related to COVID. So with that, I will be happy to take any questions, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Gormany, for your report. I'll start with Alder Marchand. Are you ready with your questions for Mr. Gormany, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am. But first, perhaps I should recognize Alder Ron Hurt, who has joined us.
Oh, excellent. Yes, you did send me that. Good evening, Alder Hurt. Thank you for being here.
Mr. Gormany, I wonder if you wouldn't mind sharing the report again and going back to the page you just left, which is the COVID page. Thank you. Okay. All right. And if you could zoom outward a little bit, I just want to see the whole page.
It's going to be a little small there.
It's a little small, yes. I just want to understand. Okay. So I'm so glad that the city has kept a separate ledger of COVID-related expenditures. Seems like good practice. Certainly helps with, requests for state and federal reimbursement, I'm sure. I just want to ask you one more time, how does this ledger with its, accounted liabilities, how does that affect the broader picture of our fund balance or the city's position vis-a-vis credit rating agencies? I understand that it's not like the figure is, $3.5 million for the current fiscal year, 4.7 for the last fiscal year. It's not $100 million, for example, but still it's a significant amount of money. And I'm wondering if you have any sense of how these liabilities kind of make how the credit agencies and other supporters of the city view these.
Sure, that's a great question, Alder Marchand. So the credit rating agencies view this as basically a separate item. So the reason we keep it as a separate expense on basically the city's general ledgers is essentially acting as a grant. So the rating agencies look at it exactly like that because you are requesting a reimbursement or a drawdown from the federal government, and they're going to give you that money based on those expenses. So rating agencies treat this basically as a grant fund, which would really have no bearing on our credit rating until they get to the very end. What the rating agencies want to know is, at the end of the day, if this fund, this grant fund, was short by $800,000, just using a number, how would you pay for it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what they're really interested in. So I think, again, one of the things that I did during the end of the fiscal year was make sure we started that process, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that way, when the credit rating agencies ask, we say, well, we moved $1.2 million in as our potential cost share. And this fiscal year, we're going to most likely do the same thing, right? At the end of the year, we're going to look at where the city falls, right? Whatever the ending deficit is, and take care of this account. Now, if that weren't to happen, for example, like the previous storms that we had, like 5 or 6 years ago, what happens is that carries as a liability on your books, basically, if you don't take care of it, until you do take care of it. It doesn't really have an effect because it's treated as a grant, But what's going to happen is not really the rating agencies, but our city auditors. If they see that on our books for too long, they will start to question it. Like, how are you going to take care of this? This is a $800,000 liability that's been on your books for 5 years. You need to take care of this some way or another. So it's not really the rating agencies, but our city auditors. And if we weren't to take care of it, then that would be a finding in the audit or whatever the case is when it hangs on your ledger for too long.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Gormany. That makes sense to me. I'm going to move off of this particular topic and towards the broader economic impacts of the pandemic that end up affecting our budget. Certainly you pointed out one in terms of parking meter receipts, right? Fewer people driving downtown, parking, using the businesses there, lower meter revenue, of course. One very important revenue item that we've relied upon for the last several years is building permit revenue. Of course, you can imagine that some number of projects either have been or could be delayed because of the pandemic. My recollection is that you are sticking with the original budgeted figure for that. Could you update us on where we stand with building permits and how confident we are that we can achieve that number?
Sure. Let me pull that up. But yes, so that is one of the main revenues that I try to stay in touch with our building official on. So Mr. Tercio is very confident. He hasn't heard any projects that will be delayed or anything like that for this fiscal year. So as you can see, as of December, we were at $12.7 million in building permit revenue. As of right now, year to date, we are actually at 13.1. So it's growing, and I know Mr. Tercio has a few larger projects that he anticipates coming in this year. He has not given me any indication that he will not be able to meet that $19.4 million number.
Thank you for that response, Mr. Gormany. I appreciate it. Finally, my last question concerns medical, which of course is always at the end of the book.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if you could show me the high cost claims page. There we go. Okay. Okay. To your earlier point about the revenue being down, obviously when you have a lower employee census, you have fewer people making payroll contributions towards premium, right? Because I think the revenue is really premium contributions. It's not out of pockets because those don't get billed to the city anyway, because they get paid for at point of service. In other words, the city doesn't get billed for the $100 copay that somebody might pay for something. They get billed for the rest of it.
Correct.
So it's really premium contributions. So if you have fewer employees, there are fewer people making premium contributions. The other risk is that if you have a lot of new people leaving, then you're more likely to have like just the people who are older sticking around. So there's the risk impact of vacancies. Although if you have a lot of retirements and then new people coming in, then hopefully that would lower your risk score overall and reduce your utilization. But it's hard to know, and these things are pretty volatile. The concern that I have, of course, which I've mentioned before, is that it seems like the chickens are going to come home to roost at some point. There's been a lot of preventive and primary care delayed because of the massive disruption of the pandemic on the clinical delivery system in our country, and certainly here in New Haven and Connecticut. And so the concern we might have is, are people getting screenings and seeing their doctors and catching things before things become big problems? And so my question after all this is, how is the health incentive program operating in this time of pandemic? And did the city change some of the deadlines for health actions that are due in consideration of the fact that some folks might not have been able to make an appointment because the clinics were closed? Or did that program just keep humming along as usual?
That is a great question, Alder Marchand. To be perfectly honest with you, I would have to, Steve Labrandes, our human resource manager and benefit manager, really handles that program. So I can certainly pass on your question to him and get through Madam Chair, get an answer to this committee on that question. I just don't know.
Thank you. Through the chair, if we could make that request, I would be grateful.
So noted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Gormany.
Are you finished, Mr. Alder Marchand?
I am indeed, Madam Chair.
Okay, and we didn't have Alder Ernie Santiago, no? Right? Alder DeCola, do you have questions for Mr. Gormany?
Not at this time, thank you.
Okay. I know Alder Morrison, am I correct?
Yes, I'm here. I don't have any questions, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alder Morrison. Alder Walker Myers, do you have questions for Mr. Gormany?
No questions at this time, Madam Chair. My questions was answered through his presentation. Thank you.
All righty, thank you, ma'am. Alder Anna Festa, you're next.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions. In regard to December medicals and you saying that they were up, when does the new benefits begin and end? Is it end of year or does it follow our fiscal calendar?
So open enrollment, are you talking about open enrollment? Open enrollment is basically follows our fiscal year. Unless there's a settlement of a contract or something that's up or whatever the case is, open enrollment is on a fiscal year basis. So anyone who changes plans or anything like that would take effect primarily in that July, August area.
Okay. So it doesn't mean that the December benefits are up because people are trying to squeeze in their deductibles and all of that, making appointments, et cetera. No. Okay.
No.
Okay, I'm going to go on to, I saw the litigation fund at 756. How many number of cases do we have in litigation? And I don't know if you can get into what they consist of.
The number of cases that are in litigation, I would have to get from Corporation Counsel. And as far as the nature of the cases, I mean, I'd have to ask Corporation Counsel. Basically, Alder Festa, I have to ask Corporation Counsel to answer that. I don't really get the information on like the cases that are pending and that sort of nature. So through the chair, I can get that.
Yes, Madam Chair, if we can get that information, it's more out of curiosity to find out what's out there since City Hall has been pretty much closed. If Madam Chair, through you. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, and I will move on to parking revenue. I mean, I guess my concern is, and I don't know, I didn't see it in the finance report, but for street sweeping, we ticket, snow removal, we're supposed to ticket. I know that our parking meters are down, but maybe we need to look at the street sweeping and snow removal fines a little more closely to try to make up for some of that lost revenue in parking revenue. I don't know if that would help.
Yeah, I think the revenue that we've collected so far in parking tickets is really, like I said, a combination of just different safety violations, which include street sweeping and other type of tickets. So I think that, again, it's a combination of a few things between vacancies in PEOs and parking downtown, and then looking at those violations, right? I know we wrote some tickets during the snowstorm, right? For folks not moving their cars or whatever the case was. So again, I think that's really a combination of things. I don't have an exact breakdown for you, but I can certainly talk to the TT&P director.
Well, and it's probably too soon to really understand what the exact revenue is since we still have storms and we've just had one. But I just want to reiterate that enforcement is important because, that's the main complaint I get from residents is that people aren't moving, not that it's your problem, are not moving their cars and we're not ticketing those in violation of the ban. So we need to enforce probably a little bit more diligently. And then my last question, actually, I have two more, but let me see which one is more important. Well, for the FEMA reimbursement, you said that more things, things will change. There might be things that are added on, but we could probably also have things that are removed. In that case, we had set aside a reserve fund. So we really need to keep an eye out on that reserve fund and make sure that it matches whatever 25% we owe. Because we keep taking from that fund for other things, but we need to be diligent and responsible to make sure that we leave that 25%. That is our responsibility in that reserve fund, because that is why we put it there.
Nope, understood. That is something that I keep monitoring. But again, as I mentioned before, we're basically a year over the first project submission. Some of these things could take time. So to be very frank with you, Alder Festa, we don't know if we're going to use that reserve fund at the end of this year. Because if we don't have, we can't move or do anything really until FEMA tells us to, or they send us the letter on what's eligible versus ineligible. To give you a sense, Storm Irene that happened 6 years ago, our deputy CAO, Rebecca Bombero, who was dealing with it at the time, we literally just got a reimbursement for that storm. So, this could be something that drags on, especially since COVID is a new pandemic that happened. So I get your concerns, and that's one of the things I'm monitoring as we make these transfers during the fiscal year, just to make sure if something does come up, it's covered. And that's why we also moved the money in fiscal year 20 to make sure that those expenses were covered as well. So I understand your point, but we are monitoring it very closely.
Yes, I appreciate that because, we just made a huge transfer with the fire department that, probably could have technically waited, even though I know we do it every year, but it probably could have waited just until we get a better idea of even what our 25% amount is, et cetera. So we just need to be diligent, responsible, because that overtime for PD and fire is still high. And now I'm waiting for the PD to come before us. But thank you, Mr. Gormany. I appreciate it. No further questions, Madam Chair.
Cool.
Okay, thank you, Alder Festa. Next on our list, Alder Furlow. Alder Furlow, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good evening, Mr. Gormany. Thank you for that thorough report. Could you remind me again what the parking meter revenues, what we're down by?
All right, let me pull that up. And so parking meters, we had a budget of $7.1 million for this year. We are projecting taking in only about $3.5 million, which means we would be short $3.6 million for the current fiscal year.
Okay, that's helpful for what I'm working on. Thank you, Mr. Gormany. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All righty. Thank you, Alder Furlow. Moving right along, Alder Evelyn Rodriguez, do you have questions for Mr. Gormany?
Just a couple. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Pretty much my questions were answered when Mr. Gormany spoke to our Vice Chair, Adam Marchand. Again, I just want to resurface that I too am interested in any information in regards to the prevention and primary care services in regards to our employees that have been a bit delayed due to the COVID. And also in reference to the fire and health and police safety overtime due to the COVID. I want to say I thank you, Mr. Gormany, for such an in-depth report in reference to those numbers regarding the COVID. I'm just a little bit more interested in a little bit of the breakdown in exactly how we're coming up with numbers in regard to OT in regard to the COVID. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Did you want a response, Alder Evelyn?
The only thing that I'd like a response to is in reference to how are we looking at numbers when it comes to COVID-19 in reference to fire, health, and police safety?
Okay.
If maybe an example could be given.
Sure, that's a great question, Alder Rodriguez.
Thank you.
Yeah, so basically we have certain guidance that we have from FEMA that we can determine what is eligible for overtime and not eligible for overtime. So basically what happens is our city departments, when they do payroll, they are responsible for basically coding their payroll as overtime related to FEMA. And that's how I capture my numbers. At the end of the project period, when I have to do a submission, which is basically every quarter to FEMA, I have to ask the departments for what was that overtime related to, so we can submit it to the federal government. So it could be because nurses had to man the COVID hotline, right? So that's an example of COVID related overtime. For police, it's if they responded to something that was COVID related during the pandemic, or if officers were quarantined or whatever the case is, as long as they can relate it to COVID and the public safety aspect. So it's really the departments keep a lot of that detail, and then they filter that information over to me, which is really how I get a lot of the COVID overtime numbers that you see in the report.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gormany, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Moving right along, Alder Hurt.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions at this time.
Thank you. And Alder Decker?
I have no questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All right. Before I start with public testimony on this item, is there any committee member that might have one follow-up question that they'd like to ask Mr. Gormany before I go into the public part? Okay, at this time, if folks are, first of all, if you're not speaking, can you kindly just mute so we don't hear some noise from your background? Thank you. At this time, I will take any public testimony. Is there anyone from the public? Mr. Lucas, do we have anyone from the public that want to testify on the items as presented? Do we know?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
All righty. And well, do I need to, for the procedural part, to say for a second and third time? Anyone from the public? Hearing none, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda this evening, being item 3, the resolution authorizing the superintendent to apply for the non-priority grant for the local funds for the Strong School. Who's the presenter there? Is it you, Mr. Gormany, or no, it's someone from Strong School, Miss Lauren S.
Yeah.
Is she on?
Hi, everyone. Yes, my name is Lauren Strelacci. I'm the grant writer with New Haven Public Schools. First, I actually have Mark on, who is the principal at Sound School, and he's going to explain a little bit of our need.
Well, good evening and welcome. First and foremost, names and address of everyone that will be speaking for the record, please. Thank you.
Sure. So Lauren Strelacci, 245 East Woodland Street, number 15 in Meriden, Connecticut.
Excellent.
Thank
And
you.
your other speaker?
Good evening, members of the Finance Committee. Mark Petoskey, 223 Valley Road, North Branford.
Excellent. All righty, folks, you have the floor. Who's starting?
Thank you. I will. First of all, thank you for this opportunity. I'm the proud principal of the Sound School. Obviously with me tonight is Lauren Strelacci. I'll be speaking more to the needs of the roof, and Lauren will get more into the details of the resolutions and the grant itself. So basically the building that we're talking about, if you're unfamiliar with the Sound School, is the Foot building. It's the large brick building that's all the way at the end of South Water Street next to the pier. We have a campus, there's 5 buildings, but we're only talking about the Foot building. So the Foot building was built in 2003, and due to an unforeseen amount of abatement that needed to be done, the original blueprints to the Foot building had to be drastically changed. For example, there's only 1 building there and there was supposed to be 2. And because of this abatement cost, a lot of modifications again had to be done and made to the construction of the building. And one of those things that happened was instead of a pitched roof, a flat membrane roof was put onto the building. And because of the lack of the second building, all of the mechanicals had to be put on that roof. And in doing so, basically since 2003, there have been constant leaks that have been happening over time. The district and facilities have attempted on numerous occasions to patch them and to do fixes, but ultimately all were unsuccessful. At this point, we're now looking at a roof that's about 17, 18 years old. That has been leaking pretty much since it was built. And as you can imagine, there's been water damage that's happened inside the building as well. And so with this grant and these resolutions, we have an opportunity to replace the roof, which will, in all sense, keep us dry going forward. So again, I hope that this board will consider pushing this on to the Board of Alders for a vote. It's definitely a need for our school, and the staff and the students at the Sound School appreciate you listening to us.
Yes.
One other thing I should add is, I believe due to, because this question came up in a previous committee meeting, due to the mechanicals being placed on the roof, that nullified any warranty. So that was a question that we first looked into. Could this roof fall under some sort of warranty? But we found out that that was not the case. So the only option at this point is to replace the roof. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Ms. Lauren, you're next.
Yeah, so thanks, Mark. Just to explain a little bit about the 3 resolutions. So the first is essentially just approving the local funding, which will be in total $538,335. The grant will cover approximately 78% of that. And the grant comes from DAS, which is the Connecticut Department of Administrative Services, and the Office of School Grants Construction Review. So this is the kind of secondary grant that they offer. They offer the priority grant, which takes much longer, many years to get on the list for. And this is for not quite full school construction, but just roof replacements, things like this. So we fit and we qualify here. Really for us, we are trying to submit as soon as possible, given the immediate need and the timing of submission. So that's why we're requesting that, we take no action tonight, and then next week on the 16th, we'll request that the full board discharges it and we go on to the immediate vote. The other 2 resolutions are just to establish a building committee and then prepare the drawings for the submission. So those are really just a formality at this point. If there's any questions, we will take anything that you guys have.
Excellent. Thank you, Lauren. And we'll start with Alder Marchand. First on our list for questions. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'll just share with my colleagues on the committee that I had an opportunity to ask questions to these fine people earlier at a City Plan Commission meeting. And my question was about solar panels and other improvements to the roof that could be made. And it was at that point that our city engineer informed me that the roof was probably not big enough, and that the repairs that are in question here are not investments in upgrades, but just emergency, stop the leak type of fixes. So that answered my question then, but I thought it's useful to have that on the record here. My question is more about kind of the formalities of it. I've read the resolutions. It seems to me that the Board of Ed already has money in its capital budget for this. What you really want from us is our authorization for the superintendent to apply for the grant. And then there's two other things. One is to establish a building committee, and the other one is to prepare the schematics and drawings. And so I'm just curious about why those, I understand the first one, because we approve grant applications, maybe not through finance, but certainly through other committees all the time. And it's a very important thing for us to do, to authorize usually the mayor to apply for and accept funding for this and that and the other thing too. So that's very familiar to us. But the building committee and the preparing the schematics and drawings, are those just corollaries of the application? Are they, is it state law that we were complying with by having those authorizations, or what's that about?
Exactly. They are required to apply, and they are also state law. So you hit both of our reasons there.
Well, then that's a clear answer. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Alder Marchand. Alder Ernie Santiago is not with us. Alder DeCola, any questions?
No, not at this time.
Okay, Alder Morrison, any questions?
Yes, Madam Chair, just one question. And so I know that the principal, you just said that there is no warranties around the roof. So what is the life expectancy of this particular roof? You know, this is a grant, which, like you said, 78% of the total cost is covered. I don't know what the number is off the top of my head in regards to the city payment. Well, what is that? Just for my own.
Yep, I can pull that up. So it would be $419,901. Oh, wait, no, that would be the total. So
yeah,
subtracting that, gosh, I should have done the math beforehand. 121,000-ish.
120, okay, so $100,000. So the city is going to invest, you know, the state is going to invest 300,000, the city will invest 100,000, give or take. And so I guess my question really is, if there are no warranties around this roof, what is the life expectancy of this roof? Because to me, that says in the next whatever, we're going to be expected to spend another 100,000, because I'm assuming that the roof, I mean, just with life, right, things decay, but especially being by the water, I'm pretty sure the water has even more of an impact on the materials of anything that's over there. So, yeah, so that's really my question, because basically we need to be taken into consideration, like, okay, in the next X, Y, and Z years, we're going to have to figure out another 150,000 to replace this roof if we get a grant. So thank you.
Right. I can't speak to exactly the life. I can check with facilities and have that reported back, though. I'm not sure if, Mark, you have any update from facilities on that.
So it's my understanding this new roof will have a warranty because the mechanicals won't be drilled through it. That's what nullified the original warranty. The original roof would have had probably a life expectancy of, you know, I would assume 25, 30 years, if not more. But because of all the adjustments that needed to be done, those mechanicals weren't even supposed to be up there with the original blueprints, but millions and millions of dollars had to be spent with abatement. And basically the entire structure had to be modified and done, frankly, on a budget to make it happen. So it's my understanding, by getting those generators, cooling systems and things off the roof, this new roof would have a longer life expectancy and the warranty would hold up.
So where are all those things going now?
On the side, and some are just going to be removed. I mean, to be honest with you, you hit the nail on the head with saltwater and mechanicals, and so most of them aren't even operational at this point. It would just be demo and getting them out of the way.
Okay, so we basically can look at as far as costs to the city in regards to the replacement as just like with any other one of our facilities and needing to replace a roof probably another 25, 30 years from now. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'm all set, Madam Chair.
Alder Walker Myers.
No questions at this time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Alder Festa.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions. Looking at the actual estimated project costs, it's a total of $538,335, where $419,900 will be covered by the state with this grant if approved, and then about $118,000 from the city. There's a line item here for $15,000 that says other professional fees. What are other professional fees?
So that could include a combination of the engineering, construction management, and then the roof contractor himself. I'm not sure exactly which ones fall into project management and which one are in the other professional fees, but it kind of includes all of those consultants that we'll need to bring on.
Okay, and as far as I guess who's going to be doing the job, was an RFP submitted or sent out?
So we are in the process of the bid process for bringing on a consultant to do the schematics and cost estimate in order to apply. And then we'll have to go back out to bid again for the work itself once we have been awarded the funds.
Okay, so it still needs to go out to bid.
Yep.
So who designed this? The students? Because I would think that we would have an architect involved with this that would know not to put the mechanics on the roof due to not only environmental concerns such as being on the water, but also for everything that you mentioned. So that's a concern because what is going to change now that we're going to get a new roof? I mean, we paid somebody to design, to advise, etc., and yet we still made a mistake that is costing us now, $500,000. So what will change now with this new roof? Where will the mechanics go? And what warranties do we have, or what blame can we put on the original builder or advisor of this? Help.
Yes, sure. So as Mark explained, I'm not sure exactly why, but we can no longer, go back to those original builders. It was completed in 2003. So obviously construction and all the plans were passed years before that. So we're going back almost 20 years at this point. So unfortunately, I don't think we can do anything about that now. But what's going to change for the future is having an architect that's going to come on again for the application in order to do those sketches, the roof sketch and the cost estimate. And then again, we'll be going out to bid for the work itself. So I can't speak to what happened 20 years ago, but we will follow the bid process as needed this year or this time.
And there'll be a committee that will overlook the process to make sure that we're not going to be replacing this roof in another 18 years.
Yep. So that's a part of the resolutions is establishing a building committee for that reason. Yep.
Okay. And then you did mention that the facilities management did fix leaks, et cetera. They did everything, and there were work orders that were filled out and the actual work was completed.
Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, so it's my understanding, I mean, there's definitely been work orders. I mean, like I said, it was leaking since day one. And so work orders have gone in, attempts have been made. I think the issue, some leaks haven't been able to find the source. And you could imagine, I don't know if you're familiar with a flat membrane roof, it's basically a flat roof with a plastic or, membrane. And if you drill through that, there's going to be issues. And there was even other things put up on the roof that after it was originally built as well. And like Lauren said, all that kind of happened way before our time. I mean, I was in the district, but I was at a different school back then. And so, yeah, we're just gonna, I mean, I'm the principal. I don't plan on going anywhere for a while. So I'm gonna make sure it's done right, or, at least give my 2 cents. And I'm with you. I don't want to be going through this process, every few years. So, yeah, we gotta, but at this point, like Alder Marchand said, we're literally getting wet in the building. And all the things that can come from, water finds the path of least resistance, and that's down. And so it has affected the interior of the building as well. And so we're looking out for the safety and well-being of our staff and students. And so, again, this is an emergency situation. I'd like to have a $2 million roof on there pitched with the mechanicals inside that has a system to keep the temperature perfect in saltwater conditions. But at this point, we just need to get the leak stopped.
Don't you have boats at the sound school?
We do, but we don't like to use them on top of the building.
No, I'm just teasing. I can appreciate that, but you know what? We were probably better off building that $2 million roof, because the cost of fixing it and now this cost is pretty close to probably that number. So thank you. And we want the students and staff to be safe as well. Thank you.
I agree with you, Alder Festa, on that.
And I'll just follow up also, something we should have mentioned, that with moving the mechanicals down to the first floor, that's also covered in the Alliance Capital Grant that was awarded at the end of last year, which also will fund the aquaculture system moving and improvements. So this kind of all happening in tandem. And we've kind of, even though the funding sources are coming from different areas, all these projects are kind of for the same reason, of these leaks and issues that have been happening over the last 20 years, unfortunately. So sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. Just wanted to add that there.
No, that's very good information to have. So thank you for adding that, and thank you for applying for the grant as well. Thank you both for being here tonight.
Madam Chair.
Alder Festa, you're all set, right?
I am. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Are you all set?
Yes, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Alder Furlow, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Madam Chair. Thank you. Just have one question. And
Alright.
I apologize. I'm not able to pull this up to look at this, but how was the building committee selected? How many members? Who will be on it? And how are those members selected?
That's a good question. I can't answer you. They actually didn't specify that in the applications, so I'm going to have to double check with how that would work, but I can't answer that right now. I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, I think that's just a good piece of information, since we're approving every part of this.
Right.
And so through you, if we can at least find out the procedure for how they will be selecting their members to the committee, I think that would be a good thing. Thank you, Madam Chair, and that's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Alder Furlow. Moving right along, Alder Evelyn Rodriguez, any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And in following up on our Majority Leader Furlow's question, will the contractor be from the local area? Thank you.
I also cannot promise that. I'm not sure what the specifications are on the bid process. I can check back in with our facilities department, who is leading that process, though, and have that answer to you guys.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Evelyn. Yes, Ms. Lauren, once you get that information, you can direct them to our Legislative Services Office for us, okay?
Okay, will do.
All righty. Moving right along to Alder Ron Hurt. Any questions for these folks?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I really want to thank Alder Evelyn Rodriguez for asking that question, because that was my question. It is important that we make sure that we have maybe a minority contractor. And I'm going to push that, because we have too less of them around. and there are quite a few that are in the city that can do the job. Now, you know, we only grade as the people we serve, and that is important, that we give all contractors an opportunity, every last one of them, but especially our minority contractors. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Alder Hurt.
I think you went on mute.
Hi, Alder. Thank you. Thank you, Alder Hurt. Alder Decker, any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank both of you for coming down and giving a very informative presentation. Alder Marchand actually preempted my question about the possibility of solar panels or a green roof situation, but I hear in your presentation, you know, the emergency situation that you're dealing with the roof and the size of it as well. So I have no other questions, but thank you again for the presentation, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Alder Decker. I have a question, folks. All that equipment that was on the roof now, you're saying it's going to be inside the building in a certain location. All that will no longer be on roof. And will the roof be a flat roof now, this new one, or is it going to be sloped in some kind of way?
So some of the stuff is going to be completely removed because it's non-functional. It's been broken for years. Some stuff is going to have to be moved down to the ground level, not inside the building. It is equipment that could be outside. The issue was when it was installed onto the flat membrane roof, it caused leaks. One of the things that's also happening that Lauren alluded to was the filtration system. So we pump water from Long Island Sound. It goes through a filtration system, and then that goes through our Aqua Lab. Again, that was built on the second floor of the building. So when I say that a lot of adjustments had to be made to the original blueprints, a lot of adjustments to fit it in the physical building that's there now. There was supposed to be an entirely separate building where all of the saltwater applications were housed. So the other grant is actually going to take care of that and move that down to that. There's a grass field where there's actually already a foundation poured for the building that was supposed to go there that had to be stopped. So it's going to be built in that area. It's my understanding that this new roof is going to be another flat roof, but facilities would better be able to answer that question.
Okay. And also another thing I'm thinking about, with all the damage that's been done from leaking inside of the building, now in the interior, will there need to be some renovation and or some major cleanup of stuff, repair work that has to be done on the interior of the building also?
Yeah, so there already, has been over the last 18 years, a lot of cleanup and mitigation and things of that nature. But there are still some issues, some from the roof and some from the filtration system. But as Lauren stated, we're going through check by check and doing the best we can. I mean, ultimately, I'd love to get a brand new building, right? And start fresh and do it the right way. But that's an ask for another day, maybe a few years down the road. I do want to preface, I did do my part with a traffic ticket last month. So you got a little bit of money from me in that line item. But no, being the new principal, I know it's, there's been push, for many years to get some things fixed. And it seems like we're heading in the right direction now. So I'm happy for that.
Wow, sounds like you guys have a serious punch list there to accomplish. Okay, very good. At this time, is there anyone else from our committee that might have one follow-up question for the group before I open it to public testimony? All righty. Moving on, Mr. Lucas, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on this item? Have we seen anyone?
Not at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay, for a second time, anyone from the public that would like to speak on the item? And a third time, hearing none. We're going to move on. Folks, we will deliberate on this item, but eventually at the end, as was stated earlier, we will keep it in committee and ask for it to be discharged at our next full board meeting. If you want to stay on the call, you're welcome to do so. If not, if you have to, move on to something else, you're free to do so. What is your preference? Whatever your preference will be, because we've covered all three items on the list, right?
Great. Thank you for having us tonight.
And thank you on behalf of the Sound School staff and students. We really appreciate you listening to us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here this evening, folks. Have a blessed evening. Moving right along, we are moving on to our next item on the agenda, which is the ordinance amendment to appropriating ordinance number 1 with the reclassification of general fund positions. Mr. Gormany, are you still with us?
Yes, Madam Chair, I'm still here.
Okay.
If Mr. Lucas, if you can bring in Mr. Pescasolito and Ms. Bond,
okay,
that would be great.
All righty, Mr. Lucas, that's your department.
And yep, Ms. Bombero, just looking at the attendee list.
Okay.
And I will say my name, Michael Gormany, 45 Jefferson Road, Branford, Connecticut.
Thank you, sir.
But you want to just get that out the way. Maritza, you want to say your name and address?
Good evening, Maritza Bond, 784 Quinnipiac Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut, Director of Health for the City of New Haven.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Pescasolito, are you there?
I heard him a little bit.
I thought I did hear him a little bit myself. I'm not sure.
Hello.
Oh, good evening.
Good evening. I'm sorry. Jeffrey Pescasolito, 595 Whitney Avenue, New Haven.
Are you able to be on camera with us or just your name?
I'm new at this. So I will. There we go.
All right. Hi. How are you, sir?
I am very well. A little tired, but I'm doing good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Mr. Gormany, you're gonna, is Ms. Bombero on as well, Mr.
Yep.
Gormany, or should we just get started?
I was just going to say, in case Becky testifies, you want to just...
Yeah, name and address for the record.
Rebecca Bombero, 122 West Rock Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut, Deputy CAO.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Proceed.
All right. Actually, we are, I think I need Mr. Lucas too, because one of these is legislative services.
Uh-huh.
See there, I see he brought himself in. There we go. You're still muted, Al.
All right. Al Lucas.
Hi there.
Howdy.
Good evening.
Al Lucas, Director of Legislative Services, 66 Harbor Close, New Haven, Connecticut.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Madam Chair, what I'll do is, if it's all right with you, I'll just sort of briefly start out each one and then sort of turn it over to the department to explain it a little bit more.
Go right ahead, sir.
All right, thank you, Alders, for hearing this. This is a transfer, as you know, the Code of Ordinance and Charter requires, if we are reclassifying an existing position that is not in the budget cycle, which is approved by the Board of Alders, to come back before this the board during the year to get that approved. So what you have before you are 4 positions in the Office of Legislative Services, 2 in the Health Department, and 1 in Parks and Public Works to reclassify. What I think you'll see is normally we have 1 or 2 of these a year. I know this is our second one halfway through the year. As folks retire or positions become vacant, and we evaluate and assess the departmental needs with the department heads, especially depending on when a retirement or vacancy takes place, we would come back before the board, probably more often than not. Some of our employees are working more towards the retirement period during the next few years. And as you know, with a lot of contracts and everything, we do not require someone to say that they are retiring in June or July or whatever the case is. We can literally retire tomorrow and not tell anybody, and that's what it is. So I think what you're going to see is more as we go through, especially since we only have a short period for the budget process, more of these reclassifications of positions, because department heads will find out, I don't need a clerk typist, for example. That may have been someone who's been here for 30 years. I need a management analyst based on the times and the departmental need. So again, what you have before you is 4 positions. And each position to be in sync with the unions, we sort of have an agreement with the unions that when we do change positions, we will try our best to sort of keep it within the union. So these positions actually achieve that by, as you can see, it just so happens that all these positions are 3144 positions. So you're really going from 3144 position to another 3144 position. 2 out of these 4 positions are vacant. So there's no impact to a person or anything like that. So we will go through the normal process of filling these if the board approves the changes in positions. We do have 2 positions that are filled, the Deputy Director of Parks and Public Works and the epidemiologist. We will get into more of those with Ms. Bond and Mr. Pescasolito on why those are needed. But to give this board a sense, yes, we still need to follow the civil service process. The incumbents are very aware. Everything still needs to be followed by civil service, which means they need to come in the top 3. As far as rank wise, they need to take the test. They need to do everything as if it was a brand new or vacant position. So we have made those incumbents fully aware, and they understand those parameters of these positions. They are not entitled to any of these changes in these positions. As far as the actual transfer goes, the money is coming from the mayor's office. Basically, as everyone knows, I'm filling 2 roles at the moment. So we have a vacancy in the mayor's office as far as the budget director position. My actual title is acting controller, so that budget director position is vacant. We have enough savings within the mayor's office because that position has been vacant since last March. So even if we were to fill that position tomorrow, the $25,000 savings would still be in that position, in that line item to transfer over to Parks and Public Works and the Health Department. Again, as we are preparing the mayor's fiscal year 21-22 budget, yes, these will become permanent positions if approved by the board. So that will be a small drop in the bucket because obviously that budget director, whatever position will be filled or may be filled or whatever the case is. But yes, we understand this will be a $25,000 increase. Again, out of a $500 and something million budget now in fiscal year 2021-22 and going forward. If this committee and the Board of Alders approves that budget. So I just wanted to sort of make those points as far as where the money is coming from, the mechanisms of civil service and these actual positions in the union aspect. So going into position by position, the first one is for legislative services. We had this most recent senior legislative assistant retire, who was making $86,000 as a Board of Alder position. And Mr. Lucas has submitted to sort of change that back to a legislative assistant. And I will let Mr. Lucas sort of go into that position of how it came about. the senior legislative assistant and why it needs to be changed.
Okay, thank you for that.
Go ahead, Mr. Lucas.
Thank you for that. As you all know, we lost our senior legislative assistant to retirement. We can now fill the position and get the work done at a much lower cost by making the adjustment back to a legislative assistant position. So, in essence, in order to accomplish that, we need approval from the board in order to drop the senior off of the title, bring in someone to do the same work at the legislative assistant position. And when you all approve that, should you choose to do so, then we can begin the process of filling that position.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. The next positions are for our health department. The fiscal administrative assistant was a position that recently retired as well within the city. So I think for more efficiencies, which Director Bond will go into a little bit more, we're looking to change that into an office manager. And the epidemiologist position is one of the positions that are filled, but I think with COVID-19 and looking at the actual functions of that position, I think Director Bond is looking at the programmatic aspect and what that position actually does and what the program for epidemiology could accomplish in looking at what COVID-19 has shown us. So I'll turn that over to Director Bond for those two positions.
Thank you, Michael, and good evening, Madam Chair and fellow Alder members. Thank you for the opportunity and being able to just give an overview of the two positions that I am proposing for your consideration. I will start with the office manager position. The previous position, as Michael noted, was a fiscal administrator, which was really just responsible for the financial aspect of doing operational budgets, expenditures and purchase orders, etc. And informally was providing support with the office operations, day-to-day handling of personnel matters. So as we are restructuring and really looking at what's the best fit, I reviewed the office manager description, which really complements the role that we're looking to fill, which will be to really look at coordinating day-to-day office expenditures and still following the protocols in regards to financial reporting, both from general funds and special funds, but then also looking at supporting the staff and handling personnel matters and being able to track any incoming employees that are being hired, following the proper paperwork, and then also making sure we have exit processes, interviews as well. And so it is my hope that an office manager is better well-defined and can be able to provide administrative and financial support combined. Any questions regarding the office manager position?
I think, Madam Chair, correct me, I think we're going to go through them.
Oh, not yet. Okay, sorry.
Just continue, and at the end, we're going to take questions on all the positions.
Got it.
Go ahead, continue the next one, please.
And then the next one, as you know, we are in the midst of a pandemic. The pandemic has definitely has continued its course. It's unfortunately, we're dealing with additional variants. We have been receiving several grants, and for us to be able to respond to this pandemic, hiring individuals that have a background on infectious disease. And so we're looking for really formalizing it as more of a semi-division where we can have a program director position where there can be some supervisory responsibilities of making sure that those that are being brought in can have direct support with someone with the specific background of an epidemiologist supervisory capacity to help us assist with the level of staff that we are hiring to respond to the pandemic. These positions include contact tracers, compliance trackers, as well as additional epidemiologists that are funded through special funds. And so it is my hope that we can get a program director sort of epidemiologist background individual to really provide the necessary support for this infrastructure that we have just built.
Excellent. All righty.
All right, thank you, Director Bond. And the last position is Mr. Pescasolido, related to Parks and Public Works. This is, I believe, a correction of what we were looking at when we were merging the two departments. As far as the deputy of the department goes, unfortunately, we didn't change the title and the salary when we were going last year through the budget. For that, for organizational purposes in Parks and Public Works, and I think this this reclassification sort of corrects that error. So I will let Mr. Pescasolido go into a little bit more.
Thank you, Michael, Madam Chair, and fellow committee members. Thank you. Michael's right on. With the merger, the Parks and Public Works. Well, Public Works has been operating for the last 5 years without a deputy director. And with this merger, there is a strong need to bring that deputy director back into the new department, transitioning to one department. We've talked a lot about developing new programs, utilizing the existing staff equipment, and doing a lot more things together. We do have a very strong emphasis on this position to be operational minded, and with an emphasis in the position of parks and tree maintenance. So again, I think the merger kind of threw us forward with this need. We look at the individual to be more of a presence in the field, which will really assist in the services that we provide to the public. And hopefully we can dress up our parks in doing so as well. And again, if there's any questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Mr. Pescasolido. Just for one quick emphasis, I was looking at the ordinance amendment and just realized that I did make an error on there. So I'm going to share screen so I can just show you that error that I did make. So the first one is this salary here, as you can see, is the same as the estimated salary. This salary is actually supposed to be, and I will send this to the committee, is actually supposed to be, the current budget is 55,022. So that is the first error. And the second error, it looks like that I didn't catch, is down here where it's transferring the money. It looks like it was reversed based on the top. So it says Parks and Public Works would receive 14,000, but as you can see, it's supposed to be the health department. Okay. And then the 11,000 is Parks and Public Works. So I can make this correction and send it to Mr. Lucas tonight for everyone. But those were the, I literally just realized that as Mr. Pescasolido was talking. So
okay.
I can send that correction to everyone. But
so noted. Excellent.
With that being said, I guess we'll open it up. We're happy to answer any questions from the committee.
Okay, thank you folks for your very concise presentation and all the positions. And we'll start with Alder Marchand with your questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to thank Mr. Gormany for his corrections, which he pointed out for us, and that takes one item off my list. I think it's just important to point out one of the consequences of these reorganizations is that in order to maintain these positions into the next budget year, we would see an incremental increase in our operational budget by something close to $25,000 plus whatever the increases would be for those positions. So that's an impact. It's true that $25,000, when you divide it by 560 something million is not a huge amount, but we pay attention to all figures, large and small. I don't have any questions about the operational rationales for this. I'm grateful to understand that the two incumbents have opportunities to apply for and may indeed continue to have these jobs, although I'm certainly hoping that they will be successful. And at this point in time, I think I don't have any questions. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Ready. Thank you, Alder Marchand. Alder Ernie is not with us. Alder DeCola, do you have any questions?
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. Alder Morrison, question?
Not at this time, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All righty. Alder Walker Myers.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just have one question. During the presentation, we talked about people not giving notice about retirement and stuff like that. So looking at the departments, are we to expect if someone should leave that we're gonna be changing the positions like we're doing now to add more money to the budget? Like, should we be expecting that?
That's a great question, President Walker Myers. I think it depends on the operational need of the department at that time. We've had a few retirements this year where we've actually filled the same position and not changed it. I honestly believe it depends on the actual department and how they're functioning at this time. I don't think that will always be the case, but there will certainly be more instances, I think, of not necessarily even increasing the monetary value of the position, but maybe just changing the overall title of the position.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I believe Alder Walker Myers is done. Madam Chair. You're muted, Madam Chair. Shall we move to the next person on the list?
There I am. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, Alder Alfesta, you're next.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have a couple of questions regarding the health department and the epidemiologist request and change. Do we currently have epidemiologists in the department? You're muted.
Sorry. Yes, we actually have two epidemiologists, one that's general funded and one that's special funded.
And the goal is to hire additional personnel for that area?
The goal is to create a position for that, and someone from that department may have the opportunity to be tested and apply.
Okay, but do you, I guess I'm trying to figure out, because this person will be now the program director. So we will have a program in place with obviously personnel that she will direct. And I'm trying to figure out who that personnel is.
So the personnel is another epi, client contact tracers, compliance trackers. So similar positions alike. So we have about 3 contact tracers, 6 compliance trackers. We have a couple of outreach workers. So we received funding for the next 3 years to really address the pandemic. And so we have specific positions that are for infectious disease that would need definitely some management around ensuring the accountability and the deliverables of responding to the different roles within the pandemic.
So the contact tracers, the compliance personnel, everything that you just mentioned are going to be funded through special funds.
Correct.
And once those funds are depleted down the road, you're saying after 3 years?
Right now, the grant is for almost 3 years. It's about 2.5 years to be exact. Unfortunately, this is really specific to the response to the pandemic. And so it is renewable, but it's obviously unknown of where we're going to be in 2.5 years with the pandemic. But we definitely have an infrastructure, and so wanting to making sure that we maintain a foundation where we can address infectious diseases in general within the city.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, because I just want to make sure that these special funds down the road are not going to become general fund items, just because it increases our budget and we're already kind of in a little bit of a deficit. So thank you for that clarification. And I guess we'll approach that when the time comes 2.5 years from now. Okay, I think that does it for me. And just one comment, as much as this is increasing the budget $25,000, I would have to agree with my colleague, Alder Marchand. I think right now, because we are in a $60 million plus deficit, every penny is going to be counted in this budget. And I would normally agree with Mr. Gormandy saying, hey, what's 25,000 in a $500 million budget? But in this case, it's $25,000. So thank you for all the clarifications, Director Bond, and Michael, for your work as well. No further questions, Madam Chair.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to Alder Furlow. Are you there? Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have any questions. I'll save my comments for discussion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Alder Evelyn Rodriguez, any questions?
I just have one question, Madam Chair, in reference to the epidemiologist. I believe that research and data collection would fall under this individual, and is there a chance that that this work, the work that is done under his or her attention, would then be somewhat cost effective in reference to whatever we contribute to? And would there then be monies that the health department could foresee in the future through this individual's work and that department? Thank you.
Actually, you raise a really good point, Alder Rodriguez. We would not be able to have the data specific the dashboard that we created, where we literally are able to look at our city and look at the different heat mapping of our cases. That work is definitely done through the epidemiologist. We are now, because we have that second epidemiologist, expanding so that we can have a dashboard for the Board of Ed positive cases and be able to share with the community what the data is telling us in regards to positivity rate and community-wide transmission within the schools. In addition to that, the epidemiologists, because of their efforts, are able to also work on data around vaccine administration and making sure that we're monitoring closely the equity and accessibility of vaccine distribution among communities that were greatly impacted by this pandemic. So the epidemiologists really serve a vital role in this pandemic, and will play a vital role long-term in regards to the sustainability piece of it, so that we can be able to really track infectious diseases within our city, because we're starting to see now increases in other diseases that we're going to have to closely monitor, like hepatitis C, HIV, etc. We have an opioid crisis. We've also developed a dashboard around that. So there's definitely areas that these epidemiologists will be able to transition into to ensure that we have a good handle locally of infectious disease and not have to rely on the state to give us data every 3 years. This way we have it right on hand and closely monitoring on a day-to-day basis.
Thank you, Director Bond, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Moving right along, Alder Hurt. Any questions for Director Bond or anyone?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no questions at this moment.
All righty, thank you, sir. Alder Decker, Charles Decker. Any
Thank you,
questions?
Madam Chair. I have no questions. Thank you.
All righty. Before I ask for public testimony, any committee members with any question, one follow-up, speak now, please. Okay. Public testimony, Mr. Lucas, I know you're on the call, but also, is there anyone from the public that has logged in to speak on any of these positions?
There are none at this time, Madam Chair.
Okay. And for a second time and a third time, anyone from the public wishing to speak on any of these 4 positions that have been presented this evening? All righty.
Point of order, Madam Chair, I think it'll be important for the second and third time to be separate calls.
Oh, pardon me. For a second time, is there anyone from the public that want to speak on the items presented in on this item, the 4 positions? And for a third time, is there anyone from the public that would like to speak on any of the 4 positions presented this evening?
Madam Chair, this is Vice Chair Marchand.
Yes.
I move that we close the public hearing portion of this meeting.
Second.
Okay, you said I move. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, the item has been moved and seconded. Discussion on closing the public portion. Any discussion? Wow, technology is tough today, every day. Is there any discussion on the item?
No,
Hearing
Madam
none. Alder Marchand, are you in favor?
Yes.
Alder Ernie Santiago is not with us. Alder DeCola?
Yes.
Morrison?
Yes.
Walker Myers?
Yes.
Festa?
Yes.
Perlow? Rodriguez?
Yes.
Hurt and Decker? Hurt
Yes.
and Decker.
Yes.
Okay, we're all in favor. The public portion is closed.
Madam
right
Chair, this is Alder Adam Marchand, Vice Chair of the committee.
Go right ahead.
I move items 1 and 2, the monthly financial reports for November and December 2020.
Second.
The item has been moved, seconded. Discussion.
Madam Chair. Oh, I believe that Madam Chair is no longer with us. I will carry on in her place. Hopefully, here she is. There you are, Madam Chair. Perhaps you were demoted from the panelists to the attendees or something, but you're back. And you're muted, Madam Chair.
As I was stating, thank you so much. The items have been moved and seconded. Discussion on the 2 items, the 2 monthlies, please.
Madam Chair, this is Alder Adam Marchand.
Go right ahead.
I just wanted to say 3 things. The first thing is, of course, I'm moving that we recommend they be read and filed, as is our custom. Second, I think it's important to recognize the kind of big picture number, which is that we had a $17 million positive fund balance last year. The city's currently projecting $11 million deficit for this fiscal year, which would leave us with a net fund balance of $6 million. That was a high-level report from Mr. Gormany. I know that the mayor has made statements about a structural deficit for next fiscal year, and there have been a number of different numbers to that. But any statement about the current fiscal position of the city need be accurate, which is that we're projecting an $11 million deficit for this current fiscal year. That's what the December financial report said. We'll see what the January report says. And then finally, I just want to remind colleagues that yes, indeed, we did create reserve funds as our budget vote from last year. We specifically did not call them COVID reserve funds because we wanted to have some flexibility in the purposes to which those funds could be put. But it's, of course, a legitimate discussion to say what are the appropriate uses to put funds from a reserve fund toward. But when we voted on it as a board, we didn't call it a rainy day fund because that had certain implications that were not intended. And we didn't call it a COVID reserve fund because we wanted it to have a broader range of uses to which it could be put. And so let's just keep that in mind as well. But having said that, I encourage colleagues to support the motion to recommend that these items be read and filed.
Thank you, Alder Marchand. Any other discussion? Alder Festa, I see your hand.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. And thank you for the correction, Alder Marchand. I misspoke earlier, and I did mean to say for the next fiscal year, we are projecting a deficit. We always end up with, we have a deficit currently, and it's still a deficit. So we still have to make sure how we spend our funds. So I appreciate you making that correction and me to follow up with it. But regardless of that too, and I appreciate that we did not call it a COVID fund. I know that we had discussions last year in our finance committee, budget deliberations, et cetera, that we wanted to call it COVID and then we figured it was not. But I think we still need to be very diligent with our spending, making sure that some of those funds are set aside for any unknowns dealing with this lovely pandemic. So I just, again, want to reiterate what I said earlier, that it's good to have some extra money in that fund, regardless if it's called COVID or not, just to make sure that that 25% is covered so we don't increase the deficit further. So thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
All righty. Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, starting with Alder Marchand, reading and filing the item.
Yes, Madam Chair.
Alder DeCola,
Yes.
Alder Morrison,
Yes.
Walker Myers,
Yes.
Festa,
Yes.
Furlow,
Yes.
Alder Evelyn Rodriguez,
Yes.
Alder Ron Hurt,
Yes.
and Alder Charles Decker.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes for reading and filing the monthly reports. Moving on to the sound school items.
Madam Chair, this is Alder Adam Marchand, Vice Chair of the committee.
Yes.
I'll just remind colleagues that the stated intention at the outset of this meeting was to take no action on items 3, 4, and 5 so that you may write a letter to the President of the Board of Alders requesting that the items be discharged in the next meeting. And so by definition, taking a no action means that I move item 6.
Thank you. Okay. Item 6 has been moved and seconded. Discussion on the ordinance amendment, the 4 positions. Go ahead, Alder Marchand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I speak in favor of the reorganized positions and of the budget transfer to pay for the changes in the public health positions and the change in the Parks and Public Works position. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, any other discussion on the positions? Alder Furlow, I see your hand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Every time you say, I see your hand or I see that hand, I think of an altar call. But anyway, I'm just wondering if it's possible or if we've given any consideration. I'm sorry, I just lost my screen.
Yeah, we see your
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
okay.
Okay.
There you are.
Sorry about that. So these 3 are being moved all together. I guess it's just a point of information or clarification. So I'm just wondering if we do not want to vote in favor of all 3 of these, is it
Point of
possible
order.
to separate them?
Point of order. The position.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So I'm wondering if we're not in favor of all 3.
There could be a motion to amend. there could be a motion to amend, Madam Chair.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So,
If a committee member wanted to support 2 but not 3, for example, there could be a motion to amend to take out whichever position someone would not want to support. There probably ought to be a kind of commensurate amendment to the transfer as well.
If I may ask another question, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm just wondering if we're able to divide all 3.
I'm sorry, separated all 3 items, separate out because there's 2 in one department, 1 and 1. Yeah, I think we can do that. Is that your wish, Alder Furlow?
That is my wish, and I'm sorry, I'm getting a Zoom brain for the right language to do this at this point. I'm sorry. I have a chicken baking in the oven and it is calling my name. And so I apologize for not having the correct language for this right now.
Madam Chair, may I
yes,
make a suggestion?
Go
Yes,
ahead,
sir.
Alder. Yes, go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I don't mean to be rude. I think it might help if our colleague from Ward 27 maybe said in plain language, what his goal is. Perhaps one of us who's not smelling chicken and beginning to feel hungry could actually help him make the motion to amend, which is technically what we need to do.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Just to be plain, I am in support of the decrease in salary in our legislative office, but I am not in support of the other positions in Public Works or in the Health Department at this time. And so I would like to be able to have the ability to vote no on those other positions and perhaps be able to amend my vote when it gets to the floor. I am concerned with the increase, as we're in discussion. I am concerned with the increase in salary, whether it's 25,000 or whether it's 1,000, as we've just heard in recent days, the millions, the tens of millions of dollars we are facing in deficit. It just concerns me to vote yes on any increase in salaries at this time, or an increase to the salary line at this time.
I see. So doing amending so that each position will be separated individually. How does that process? We can just separate them out, correct? Mr. Lucas?
Yes, it sounds like a motion to separate the item. So if Alder Furlow wishes to move to separate, he can move to separate, tell you which ones he wants to separate, and then you can take individual votes on those.
Do we do that now?
Yes, you need to do that now, but that's going, the motion here now is only about separating the items.
Okay.
Not the final vote.
Right. So Alder Furlow, you made a motion to separate the items out individually by respective departments. Is there a second to that?
Point of order, Madam Chair. Alder Furlow would have to make an appropriately formatted motion for it to actually be a motion. He has only stated his intention and his goal. And I think, if I might just add that the issue with the legislative services position is that there's no need for any transfer to cover that, since it's a decrease.
Right.
And so if you were to separate that from the rest of the motion, you wouldn't have to touch the transfer. You would only be, you'd be just separating out the part of the resolution that authorizes the new title. The rest of the motion could remain intact because the transfer only deals with those other positions.
Right.
So if it's our colleague from the 27th Ward intention to separate it into those two pieces, it would simply be a matter of separating out the approval of the reorganization of the OLS position. The rest of the item could remain intact,
Right.
unless he wants to make a further separation.
Alder Furlow?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. I think what I am looking to do is to separate each department so that there can be a vote on each department, even though OLS is not a transfer but a decrease. I just think that it's important when we get to the floor to be able to have each of those separated. I would like to make a motion that we separate all three of these departments for a vote. That we would vote on OLS separate, Public Works separate, and the Health Department separately.
Okay, motion has been made. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, discussion. Are there any other discussion besides Alder Furlow of his reasoning for the separation of departments? Any other discussion? Alder Marchand, I see the hand up. You know, Alder
Madam
Furlow.
Chair. I would like to propose a friendly amendment for Alder Furlow's consideration, which would be to further separate out the transfer. And the way I would approach it is before the committee to vote on the reorgs first and then vote on the transfer. And because
Alder Marchand?
He looks like he's frozen.
Yeah, I see that. Hopefully what he was trying to say, separating out the items so that each can be voted on individually, right?
I think Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
believe he also wanted to separate the transfer.
As well as the transfer. Okay. Hopefully he can rejoin us momentarily. He must be having some technical difficulties. So continuing on the discussion, Alder Furlow, which is to separate all three departments as well as the transfer itself. Right? Is that is your request and your wish, sir?
I think as long as we're able to vote on all three of these items separately, that's really what my request is. Whatever that language amounts to, I'm fine with it. I just want to be able to vote on OLS and then vote on Public Works and then vote on the Health Department.
Righty. Alder, his computer just died. He said he's trying to reboot. So, all right. I think we get totally what your ask is, and if we're all in favor of that, Alder Marchand likes for the roll to be called. So Alder Ernie's not with us. Alder DeCola, are you in favor of Alder Deckers? Oh, he was friendly. He was doing a friendly, but I think that was just for the transfer itself. Alder Marchand, are we Alder DeCola, are you in favor of separating the items and transfer? Yes or no,
Yes.
sir?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Alder Morrison?
Yes.
Okay, Alder Walker Myers?
Yes.
Alder Festa?
Yes.
And Furlough, even though I know it's a yes, but yeah, for the
Yes.
record, thank you.
Yes.
Alder Evelyn. Alder Evelyn.
She's not on, Madam Chair.
Okay, I'm hearing someone's discussion somewhere else. Can we mute if we're Alder Hurt? You're in favor? Are you in favor?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
yes,
and Alder
Madam President.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I'm sorry.
No problem. Alder Decker, are you in favor of the separation of these items and the
Yes.
transfer?
Yes.
Okay. Motion carries. The items will be separated per
Chair, we can't hear you.
Hello. Madam Chair, are you able? We can't hear you. Now you're muted, Madam Chair.
How about now?
We can hear you now, Madam Chair.
Okay, we've just taken the vote, Alder Marchand, just to catch up on the separating of the items as well as the transfer per your friendly. Is that right? You and Alder Furlow. You I think you were discussing prior to you losing connection about the transfer being
Yes.
separated out as
Yes.
well.
Yes, Madam
Yes.
Chair.
So
I was
you
recommending that.
Now that you're back on, are you in favor of separating the transfer as well as the items? Because we took the vote, but we lost you there in the voting process.
Sure. Yes.
Yes. Thank you. All
I
righty.
assume it passed,
So,
Madam Chair.
right. Okay. We're all in favor of the items being separated out. Now, back to the discussion on the item as amended. Any other discussion on the last item?
Point of order, Madam
amended?
Chair. This is Alder Adam
Yes.
Marchand. Of course,
Uh-huh.
all items have been moved now separately, although originally together. So any items people could speak about, I think probably what we'll need to do once we're done with discussion is vote on each one in sequence. But people may speak about any or all of them at this point. And I gather that certainly our colleague from the 27th Ward has made his views known, but other alders may want to opine as well about the wisdom of these reorganizations, the four of them. I think you are frozen, Madam Chair.
Any other discussion? From the committee? And
So Madam Chair
I
has
can
asked.
now.
We are having a rough evening, aren't we, Madam Chair? We will
Yes,
get through it.
we are. I am still working on the connection here.
Okay. So, Madam Chair, as you have been intermittent in your connection, I've been looking at
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Nobody has raised a hand to speak on any of the separated items, but they may if they wish.
Right. So are you hearing me now, Alder Marchand?
Yes, we can hear you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. All righty. So no one has raised a hand. All right. On items 1 and 2, which are the monthly report, at this time, I will be asking for a vote on the reading and filing on these items.
Madam Chair, we
Okay.
have already voted on items 1 and 2. We are not voting on 3, 4, and 5. So now we're voting just on item 6.
Only
and
on
we're gonna
item
do it
6,
in
correct.
order, starting with
Right.
OLS and then Public Health, then DPW Parks, then Transfer. I believe that's the order in which they're listed in the resolution.
Okay. All righty. So starting with the Legislative Services position. Okay. Alder Marchand, are you in favor of that position?
Aye.
Thank you. Alder DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Morrison.
Yes.
Alder Walker Myers.
Yes.
Alder Festa.
Yes.
Alder Furlow.
Yes.
Alder Evelyn Rodriguez.
Yes.
And Alder Ron Hurt.
Yes.
Alder Charles Decker.
Yes.
Item passes. Next one are the Public Works Department position. One. Alder Marchand.
Yes.
Okay. Alder Cola, the Public Works position. Are you in favor, sir?
Yes.
Alder Morrison.
Yes.
Alder Walker Myers.
Well, from
Yes.
Alder Festa.
You like
Yes.
you don't have to be saved to do an act of kindness, but when you accept
Excuse me,
faith,
Alder. It sounds like Alder Smith. I'm sorry, we're hearing you. If that's you, I'm hearing you. I don't know if about anybody else. Alder, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. Where were we? Alder Festa.
I voted, Madam Chair, yes.
Okay. Alder Furlow. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No.
All righty. Alder Evelyn Rodriguez.
Yes.
Alder Ron Hurt.
Yes.
Public Works position. Yeah. Alder Charles Decker.
Yes.
Madam Chair, I believe that the motion passed by a vote of 9-1. Perhaps, yeah, 9-1. And that, Madam Chair, your audio is intermittent and unintelligible. In the interests of continuing our proceeding, I would call the vote on the next position, which is the office manager position in the Department of Public Health. How do I vote? Yes. Let me get the list, hold on. Alder Santiago, not here. Alder DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Morrison.
Yes.
Alder Walker Myers. Alder Festa.
Yes.
Alder Furlow.
No.
Alder Rodriguez.
Yes.
Alder Hurt.
Yes.
Alder Decker.
Yes.
Alder Hamilton, are you able to speak? How do you vote on this item? And one more time, Alder Walker Myers.
Yes.
Okay, so that item passes 8-1 with Alder Hamilton unable to vote at the moment. Finally, the last position is the project manager position in the Department of Public Health. How do I vote on the item? I vote yes. Alder Santiago. Alder DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Morrison.
Yes.
Alder Walker Myers.
No.
Alder Festa.
Yes.
Alder Furlow.
No.
Alder Rodriguez.
I'm sorry, do you mean the epidemiologist or
Yes.
project manager?
It's from epidemiologist to project manager. Alder Rodriguez.
I'm sorry. So you're saying the position is changing from project manager
No, it's
to
changing to
epidemiologist?
project manager.
To project manager?
Yes.
No.
Alder Hurt.
Yes.
Alder Decker.
Yes.
Alder Hamilton, are you able to vote? Okay, according to my count, that was 6 yay and 3 nay. So that passes as well. Finally, I'll call the vote on the transfer, which has not been amended. It's the $25,000 from the mayor's office over to a portion to Parks and Public Works and a portion to Public Health, according to the corrected numbers that Mr. Gormany provided in his testimony. Calling the vote, Alder Marchand, yes. Alder Santiago, not here. Alder DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Morrison.
Yes.
Alder Walker Myers.
Yes.
Alder Festa.
Yes.
Alder Furlow.
No.
Alder Rodriguez.
I am so sorry. What are we voting on?
Alder Rodriguez, this is the transfer of $25,000 to pay for the increases in salary associated with these reorganizations.
Yes.
Alder Hurt.
Yes.
Alder Decker.
Yes.
And Alder Hamilton, are you with us, able to vote?
Yes.
I don't see her. So that is 8 yay and 1 nay. So the items which have been separated all passed. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I see it's moved and second. Any discussion on the motion to adjourn? Hearing none. All in favor? Alder Marchand, yes. Alder DeCola.
Yes.
Alder Morrison.
Yes.
Alder, okay, Festa.
Yes.
Alder Furlow.
Yes.
Alder Rodriguez.
Yes.
Alder Hurt.
Yes.
Alder Decker.
Yes.
The motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. And thank you for your patience with our various technological challenges
Good night, everybody.
and procedural
Everyone.
innovation.
Thank you.